right. Well, welcome to the Santa Monica Public Library. Before we get started, my name is Nancy. I'm a programming librarian here at the library, and I'm very excited to present one of our quarterly Farmers Market Panel Series programs that we've been doing for a number of years. I just want to mention before we get going that we always have tons of great programs going on here at the library. You might have noticed in the entrance that we have our calendar of events, so I encourage you to grab one. We also have a kids and teens calendar out there. And then I want to make a plug for a particular program. I have a program coming up this Saturday, May 3rd, and it's with author Cy Timoney, and he is the author of the book Sneaky Uses for Everyday Things. And he shows you how to repurpose broken and unused items around your house. He's a very cool and interesting man, so I encourage you to check it out. So this evening's program is entitled Savoring the Fruits of Your Labor, and like I mentioned, it's part of our quarterly panel series. Our panelists are going to discuss backyard gardening and food preservation and what these practices can do for you individually and for the community around you. So first up, please join me in welcoming Farmers Market Manager Laura Avery.
Thank you, Nancy. And another program that I noticed that was on the library is going to be a gardening in small spaces workshop that they're doing at the Fairview Library next Saturday, May 7th. So if you want to take the plunge this summer and start gardening small, you can go to that too, and that's a free class as well. So it is my great honor to welcome you all here and to introduce our wonderful moderator, Sarah Spitz. Sarah was the producer and publicity director at KCRW Radio, our favorite radio station, for many, many years, 28 years. And then she retired, and then she really started getting busy. She is a LA County Master Gardener. She's an LA County Master Food Preserver. She single-handedly organized our preserving classes that we now have out at the Pico Farmers Market once a month. And she decided to moderate this panel. She has personal reasons for wanting to do this. These are where her interests now lie. As a retired person, she can do what she wants to do and what she's really interested in. So she pulled together friends, personal friends, some friends she just knew on Facebook, and she said, hey, let's get together and have a discussion. And that is how tonight's panel came to be. And I am going to let Sarah introduce these wonderful panelists. But first, our chef presenter, Paul Buchanan, is going to show us a slideshow. All right.
Hang on. Actually, not quite the order of events. I will take it from here, Laura. Thank you. No, I'm just going to introduce myself because I know me. And I will let, after Paul's presentation, which is a PowerPoint presentation that none of us has seen except Paul, who created it, I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves. But very briefly, who is here tonight? Eric Knutson, who's sitting in the audience. He'll be up here on the stage shortly. Eric's kind of a super rock star to me. He wrote a book called The Urban Homestead, and we won't discuss the legal issues involved in that, but they came to bear right here in this audience 2 years ago. But Eric is a blogger. It's called Root Simple. He's also an urban homesteader, really fascinating human being. Great bread baker, by the way, and you'll be tasting some of his wares this evening. Except for tonight. Tastes good, just looks bad. We also have Florence Nishida. Florence is a fellow master gardener, and Florence is, hi Lucia. Florence is doing the garden teaching at the Natural History Museum, and she has a wonderful story to tell, which I'm going to let her tell later, but she is an awesome human being. Susan and I are meeting for the first time. Susan Proffitt created this place called the Nichols Canyon Co-op, which is a group of neighbors and friends in the neighborhood who bring their stuff together, grow things. They have canning sessions. She'll tell you all about that. And speaking of the man who is going to be showing us the PowerPoint right now, Chef Paul Buchanan of Primal Alchemy. He's a fellow master food preserver, as is Eric. Are you a master gardener too, Eric? I don't remember. No. Okay, so we have a bunch of us that are in the master class, so to speak. But Paul is going to take it away. We're going to start with a PowerPoint presentation that he's put together. And then we're going to come up on the stage, chat amongst ourselves as the friends that we are, and you'll get a chance to ask questions if you're interested. Thanks.
Maybe I'll just hold it. So I was told I have to run through this really, really quickly. So I'll tell you quickly about Primal Alchemy Catering. My name is Chef Paul Buchanan from Primal Alchemy Catering. We're located down in Long Beach, California. I found out about the Master Food Preserver class, and myself and Jimmy Ng that are down in Long Beach that runs a growing experience took it together and met a lot of great people, as you'll see, as you've already seen here, and you will see a little bit more of. It was things that I was already doing. I already had 2 gardens at the time. I was already growing a lot of food for my own family. I was also growing food for my catering, and I was foraging, and I was doing so much more. But after my association with the Master Food Preservers, I started learning so many more things that I could do than what I was doing right then, which was mostly charcuterie and a little bit of pickling and a little bit of jams. But I really learned the technique, and that is, I can't recommend it enough as a program. It was a great program for us. Primal Alchemy Catering focuses on local, seasonal, and sustainable. So our sources are what's in Long Beach, what am I growing, what are all my neighbors growing, who's doing it organically. Then the next level is the farmer's market, and then the next level would be, well, that's pretty much it. we pretty much try. There's so much food grown, good food grown around here, but I'm happy to say that we produce most of the things in our kitchen ourselves, from mustards, making our own cheeses. We even made our own butter for an event the other day, and we do events from about 2,000 to 2,000 people, so we can handle quite a bit and still focus on local, seasonal, and sustainable. Also, the TED Conference is something we did 4 years in a row, and they had confidence enough to us that we actually bought futures and vegetables just so we could produce them and have them for the TED Conference. So they were all grown within about 20 miles of the TED Conference, where it happened for 1,000 people, or more, actually. So where do we find local food? Local farms. In Long Beach, it's Farm Lot 59, Spring Street Growing Experience. They're small little spaces that we can get small amounts of food from. So I'm on the phone with them, or I'm texting them, and they're telling me what's available when, especially for a catering party. Farmers markets, we have 6 different days. We only have Monday as our only dark day, but there's 2 days that are double markets, and I really have a great association with a lot of the farmers there, and it's so good, and I've been involved in it so long that I can pretty much take what I want, put it in a crate, put it in my car, go back behind there and throw money in their till and leave. So they trust me that much, and that's a great experience to be able to have, to be able to do that as a chef, and to know all my clients know that that's the relationship I have, that's where the food's coming from. If you grow your own food, that's great. I do, and 365 days a year, you have whatever available is out there. So I have, I have all my little tomato plants coming up that are about knee high right now, but I still have beets in the ground. We're going to start getting more carrots in there to go pair well with the tomatoes, and we have so many things. Lots of heads of cabbage coming up, and that we can make into sauerkraut and lots of different things. So just whatever's in there is the things that I get to put on my menu. My menus are not something that somebody gets to choose. I pretty much say, here's the things that are seasonal right now, what do you like? And then I cook what they like and try to focus on what's seasonable. Also, share with your neighbor. The urban orchard is amazing. There's tons of websites out there of where you can find fruit, and it's hanging on everybody's tree. Locally in Long Beach, we have a fruit gleaner that's local. It's a SoCal Harvest, Cindy Goss. She actually gleans and probably donates 95% of the fruit that she gets, and she sends it out to food banks, the homeless, things like that. 5% maybe, or a little less than even that, comes to me in the way of citrus, persimmons, whatever's in season. I make it into jams, jellies, give her gas so she can fill her gas tank back up and go out and, with her volunteers, collect more fruit. So.
We're going to put you behind the podium so people can see the screen.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry about that. All right. So opportunities for preservation. Cucumbers into pickles, cabbage to sauerkraut, kale to kale chips in a dehydrator, pork to charcuterie, which I'll show you a lot of real quick, citrus to marmalades, also kumquats in there, berries to jelly, figs to jam, lemons to lemon curd, grapes to wine, persimmons to chutney, tomatoes to soup. I don't have anything that I've actually, well, no, that's not true. So something we have locally foraged we made into beer was mugwort. I didn't bring any today, but we do make our own beer as well. That we do not sell it, but the guys in my kitchen enjoy it very much. Types of preservation. So canning, so all these things that you're producing, that you're getting out of your garden, you can can it, you can freeze it, smoke it, dehydrate it, pickle it, ferment it, or salt cure it. And you're not really raising pigs here locally very much, but we have some sources where you can get great pigs that are sustainable, that are heritage pigs, that are really raised in a great location. It just takes a little more effort to do it. And if you're an individual, then you have to kind of pair yourself up with a couple other families so you could share a pig, and then divide it up. And then now they're even getting down to where you can just get the certain cuts of it as well. Grow it. I'm saying in mine, here's Gladys Avenue Urban Farm. That's the one that I contracted with for the TED conference, and they grew their entire farm just for us. But, the radishes are great for pickling, and they will last a long time. They'll go really well with the charcuterie and the things that produce there. I grow at least 4 different colors of carrots, 3 or 4 different types of beets, all kinds of lettuces, broccoli, cauliflower, tomatoes. I'm trying to concentrate on things that I can provide for my family for the most part, but some of the things that are good for pickling that can be condiments. I'm not necessarily getting things for my catering business that I'm growing in my own garden. Most of those are more like accents. They're not the main ingredient. I count on farmers and ranchers to do that kind of stuff. So the tomatoes, I grow about 24 different kinds, try to focus on heirlooms every year. Cucumbers, do a lot of pickling, but we also love the little small cucumbers because we can hollow them out and put small amounts of good stuff in there, whether it's crab or vegetable or tuna or something, and just make it bite-sized for our catering clients. Cabbage. There's tons of things that you can do with cabbage, kimchi, but kimchi and a lot of sauerkraut, it goes a long way. Onions, 3 or 4 different kinds as accents to a lot of those dishes, and peas and beans. I'm not really a guy that will grow a lot of beans because it takes a lot of space to grow enough beans and a lot of time to sort them out. So I'd much rather get them from the Santa Monica Farmers Market where the guys do it here, and then if I want to use those kind of beans. And then herbs, I grow a lot of different herbs because and I just try to grow them outside my door of my house if I can. If I had enough room at the catering kitchen, I would grow them there. So let's go through jams, jellies, and preserves really quick. Stone fruits, peaches, plums, whatever's in season. Those are the things that they're at the height of the market. They're the lowest price. So that's what I'm going to get, or whatever there is of an abundance that gets harvested. That's what I'm going to use. So I make a fig fennel jam, peach bourbon barbecue sauce, a lot of different things, and I have demos. I have some things here that you can look at later for that. Charcuterie is one of my passions. The picture here that you see on the right is a copa. That's from the shoulder, really nicely marbled. On the left, that's my friend Craig Deal that does a lot of prosciutto legs. I do a few, but I'm not doing quite the quantity that he has. From the belly, you get bacon, pancetta, and sausages. From the leg, you get prosciutto, mini hams, because doing a whole leg like that is great, but it takes up to 1.5 years, so it takes a long time and a lot of space. The loin for lonza, smoked, or the fat for lardo, and then the shoulder, to me, is like the best for this copa, the beautiful copa. That's probably my favorite, and then a picnic ham for their very front. And then it's well known that the shoulder is the best for the sausage because it has a great mixture of fat and meat. And if I can show you a couple really quick. Okay, so we make a lot of different sausages, from Chinese lapchang sausage to traditional Italian sausages. There's a red wattle pancetta here. We have copas, and we do different spice rubs. After it's cured with salt, so really almost all these things are just meat with salt on top of it for a certain amount of days, depending on the weight. And there's other ingredients as well. You want to look up and make sure you get a really good reference and a good source of a recipe. So, and a lot of those are available through Master Food Preservers. And we even have a leg of prosciutto that's from a wild boar that was harvested. But what you'll end up with is very thin slices of meat that you're not going to eat a lot of, but it's very flavorful and grows great in a lot of dishes. So charcuterie is great, lasts a long time. Fermentation. I have some kimchi, I have some sauerkraut here that I made over 2 years ago, and I would say that this is probably the best sauerkraut that I've ever had in my life. If you look at it in the point of it being fine wine, this is more valuable to me than a $60 bottle of Cabernet. Because I would much rather take this, because the flavor in this and the sandwiches that I'm going to get out of this are going to be phenomenal. And I can get easily like 20 sandwiches out of there that will just blow people away because it's so complex and has so many flavors. Sauerkraut is something that ages extremely well and will develop over time. This one had a lot of ingredients in it, and it took only a couple hours to make a huge batch. It's lasted me 2 years. So it's not something. I think it's very valuable when you can make a large amount and if you have the storage space for it. But if you do it at home just with 1 or 2 cabbages, you could have a couple different batches to look at. Kimchi, kabocha, all these things get better with age. There's lots of recipes out there. Smoking, bacon sausages, lapchang, salmon, other fish, and you can use different woods for different flavor profiles. Here's a picture of just a few of the tomatoes that I grew myself. And those things that you can use in dehydrator, or you can use the spices or the herbs down here as little components, and you can even mix up in a canning jar. You can take an empty canning jar like this, fill it with all of those spices that you want to make up a certain kind of soup, and just have it there dry, and then add hot water wherever you're going, and you could have an instant wonderful soup with a lot of great flavor if you're just dehydrating and using that in the right combination. So Primal Alchemy Catering, I just want to think that we're rethinking our food system a little bit. We're trying to focus on preservation, feed your family well with the things that you grew in your own garden, and know your food shed. Know what kind of foods that you can get around here. Know what neighbor has great figs and fig trees, and so you can trade with them and bring them your squash and get their oranges. And then the guy down the alley has, certain kind of citrus. You can dry the skin and use that. You can, there's so many things you can do with food preservation. Farm to table, supporting your local farmers, and food security. If you know how to grow it yourself, you're going to be a lot better off in the long. So to eat is a necessity, but eat intelligently is an art. So I would say thank you very much for having me here, and I tried to run through it as fast as I can. If you have any questions, I can answer them later.
I was really astonished. I kept saying free snacks, and I thought for sure that was going to bring in the crowds. There's a big event tonight in downtown Los Angeles, and it's the dedication of a new a place called LA Prep and LA Kitchen, which is going to be a really wonderful resource, and it's robbed us of our foodie crowd, so darn them. So I'm going to tell you who I am very briefly. I as Laura said, I spent 28 years at KCRW. And in about 2005, I started freaking out about the planet. I mean, it was horrible. I was convinced that the world was going to end the next day. I was in great depression over it. And I decided I need to do something positive. Why don't you all come and sit down while I'm jabbering? I had gone to the farmer's market, the Santa Monica Picos Farmer's Market, which at that time, because the Virginia Avenue Park was being sort of reconstructed, was being held at the Santa Monica Airport in parking lot across the street from the Spitfire Grill. And I see these girls sitting there with this bowl, this stainless steel bowl of soil, and they're putting plants in pots, and they're putting seeds in pots. I'm going, who are you guys? What do you do? Well, we're the LA County Master Gardeners. What does that mean? Well, we teach people to garden. I said, well, where do I sign up? I don't know how to garden. How do I do that? Well, it's more than that. You have to go through this training course. You have to learn how to teach other people. You have to volunteer in service to the community, and you have to do continuing education. I said, where do I sign up? So I signed up in 2006. I was really astonished to be accepted because I'm not a gardener. I wasn't a gardener. Not that much of a great gardener now, but I still grow my own. I grow tomatoes. I grow herbs. I have a tiny little patio that I grow stuff on, and mostly salvaged furniture upon which I place these pots in which I grow these things. And it's amazing to me to go into my freezer and find some tomato sauce from tomatoes that I grew, that I made, that's in my freezer that I can now eat and enjoy. And it's phenomenal. It's a phenomenal experience. The Master Food Preserver thing. Now, let me explain one thing. The master designation is from the University of California Cooperative Extension. That's not UCLA Extension. This is associated with the USDA. In each state, there is a land-grant university, and that land-grant university is the one that offers the scientific research that we as volunteers extend into the community. So we're celebrating, UCCE is celebrating its 100th year this year, and on May 8th, there's going to be an event at, I'll tell you about it at the end of the thing, because it's actually written and I can't remember all the details. But May 8th, you have an opportunity to be a citizen scientist and go out and celebrate our 100th anniversary with us. Now, the Master Food Preserver Program, again, never preserved a thing in my life, except I got together in a group and we canned some strawberry jam. And what I loved about that was what I loved about what I did today with my friends Elizabeth and Julie and Marlena, who's not here. Julie and Elizabeth and I plant seeds every month to give away at the Mar Vista Farmers Market. And there's just something so beautifully, ritualistically, community, lovingly based feeling in this gathering that we do once a month. And it's so much fun. We've got it down to a factory. We did it in 90 minutes today. We made 6 flats of seeds plants that we'll be giving away. But the Master Food Preserver thing was I'd never done this before, but that feeling in that community setting was so great. I was thinking, God, it would be so cool to do this with a lot of people. And I signed up for the program. I got accepted. It's terribly competitive. They shouldn't have put me in it because I'm not a preserver, but boy, I'm out there talking about this program. That's why I'm in it. I have made some great jams, though. There's 6 of my jars out there tonight, so you're going to taste those. Now, rather than me continuing to blather on, because this is a brief panel, and I'm waiting for Paul to come back. Where is he? I wanted to ask you, Susan, since Paul was talking about sharing, going to your local. Let's hear you talk about your origins and how you came to what you do.
Well, for me, although I didn't go into the Master Preserver program, I grew up learning how to preserve, watching both of my grandmothers with kitchen gardens in the Midwest, preserving everything that they did. My maternal grandmother in particular had a garden that was the talk of the county, because what she loved to do was go fishing, and she would go fishing in the morning. She would have fish for dinner, which they eat at noon, and then she'd plant the fish heads in her garden, and she only planted by the moon phase, and it was extraordinary. Everything was completely self-sustaining in her little community. This grandmother had, as I say, an extraordinary garden, and especially these fabulous gooseberry bushes. However, she didn't have a cherry tree. Her neighbor Grace had a cherry tree and had yearnings for gooseberry jam. So what I'm doing is nothing new at all. It's just a little bit new in the Hollywood Hills in 2000, right? But this is a very old idea. When I started my cooperative simply with the thought that I live on the shady side of the hill, so I actually can't grow anything except in pots on my second-story roof. However, I know lots of people in my neighborhood who grow tons of things, and I was seeing people load up their green cans with oranges and lemons and figs and loquats, etc., and it just drove me crazy because this was really good food, and they had no idea, for some of them, what it even was. So I started talking to my neighbors and put the word out that I was interested in forming a cooperative. Was anybody interested? Initially, I had a huge response. And this wasn't just to my neighbors. It was also to friends of mine. And, after you live in Los Angeles for a while, you tend to know a lot of people. So initially, I had a huge response, and that ended up filtering down to the core members of my co-op now, which is 24 families. We keep it at about 24 because that's 2 flats of jars, and that's a real comfortable amount for a home kitchen. My cooperative, no money ever trades hands. We only use what we grow. People who don't grow work in the kitchen, right? And it's not even one kitchen we use. I instituted this past year because I had 2 teenage boys at home, the co-op rotating kitchen concept, which was basically that my friend Chitra has an 8-burner gas stove and a really big kitchen, and I have a galley style with 4 burners. So it was like a no-brainer, let's go to Chitra's to do it. So we have a person who has a kitchen. We have a person who knows how to cook and can. We have one of my favorite co-op members. He happens to be a medical doctor, and he can dice like nobody's business. I mean, he is fantastic. Love him. His wife is a nurse, and she is meticulous about wiping the rims for sterility. Love that. I have another member of my co-op. She's grew up in communist Eastern Europe, and she grew up with a whole different idea of what a cooperative was, and she didn't have a really sunny feeling about it. But coming into my co-op, she also knew some tastes that she wanted to get back. And it's tastes that you can't buy, you have to make. She is the first to admit that the best thing she does is wash dishes. So she comes over, and in the rotating kitchen, she's at the sink. So we have people at the sink, people cutting. We have other people who can't be in the kitchen, but they know how to buy sugar. So great, get sugar, drop it off, drop off jars. At this point, we have so many jars that are constantly in circulation, we no longer need jars. We rarely need much sugar. I developed these recipes that use substantially less sugar than any commercial preserves because I'm a believer in doing whole fruit jams and marmalades where we use the pectin that's already in the fruit. The only thing we're discarding are sometimes little bits of bud-ins. And even as far as seeds, we save the seeds in my co-op. We have a seed library, and we give them to people. So we are I put my co-op, I have a website for it, and a blog, and a Facebook page, and I never keep it up. And I'm so behind in my recipes that it's like, sometimes I think that maybe if I did get just some sort of not awful illness or injury at all, but something where I had to sit down for 3 days, I would completely update my recipes, but that hasn't happened, so good and bad. But since I started my cooperative, then with other people in the co-op and friends of mine or people that hear about me, other co-ops have started following my design. And there's a co-op in the UK, in Australia, in Poland. And a lot of this tracks with people's backgrounds, right? And they've told their families about it and what we do. The little twist with my cooperative now is that although we started with making marmalades and jellies, and this is me personally, I actually don't eat that stuff much. But what I really like is fermenting foods. And so now I have finally developed the Nichols Canyon sourdough strain, right? And so we're baking bread and we're sharing the culture. And so people can now bake Nichols Canyon sourdough right with our bread, and I'm teaching people how to bake this. I also have a kombucha, and so we make scobies, a symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. That's what's called a SCOBY that you put in a sweetened tea and you get kombucha, which you don't have to buy for $5 a bottle at all. So we share SCOBYs. We do lacto-fermentation pickling. It depends on what we're hungry for, what we've got, and we get together and do it. So that, in a nutshell, is my co-op.
And it is the Nichols Canyon Co-op. Is that how we would search it online?
You can search Nichols Canyon Co-op, Nichols Canyon Cooperative. I actually think I've done all the misspellings of Nichols Canyon that I could think of, so you'll still come back to me. And I'm also just, Nichols Canyon Co-op at Gmail, or search us on Facebook. And naturally, I didn't bring any of the little zines that I made 2 years ago, which showed you too can make your own limoncello. But I'm happy to send them to anyone.
We're going to, Florence, you're going to take the microphone, unless you have your own, and speak right into it so we can hear you. And so that was me. Tell us, first of all, how did you come to gardening? And I know this is getting into it too quickly, but I would like for you to speak personally about your health and gardening and how those two are connected.
Okay, I'll talk about that towards the end.
Okay.
Can you hear me? No.
Speak directly into the mic.
Directly into the mic. Okay. How about this one?
Yeah,
much
that's
better.
better.
All right. Unlike Susan. I saw a small article in the newspaper while I was still working, and in my day job, and about the Master Gardeners, and they were a group of volunteers that help people in low-income neighborhoods learn how to grow food. And I thought, oh, that sounds great. That's what I want to do. I made a file folder called Retirement Plans, and I put that little piece of paper inside. Yvonne would love hearing this story. I saved that paper, and finally, when I did retire, the first thing I did was apply to the Master Gardener training program. I'm so glad I did. Any of you who have a true desire to garden and share the knowledge, I urge you to apply to the program. You'll meet the most wonderful, dedicated people.
What year did you apply?
2008.
Okay.
2008.
Oh, really?
But anyway, when we started, the Master Gardener started the Grow LA Victory Garden class series, a mouthful, a few of us, 10 of us, I think, were asked to start as this initiative. And we were supposed to locate our own site for our classes, and a site that included some dirt areas for digging in. I drove up and down many, many streets in South LA because that's where I was based. I'm a research associate at the Natural History Museum. I'm actually professionally a mycologist, but
Mushroom.
but no, there aren't many. But anyway, so looking for a class, I found lots of open areas where the sunshine was, plentiful, but it was all asphalted over. I mean, every place, empty space in South LA is covered with asphalt and often surrounded by a chain link fence and trash filled. And so I gradually began to really understand that green is the color of money, and more than in one way. It's not dollar bills, it's in greenery. The difference between a community that has lavish landscaping and flourishing plants, healthy, billowing plants, is money. And when you go into South LA, which already is extremely lacking in healthy food sources, very lacking in a full supermarket offering a variety of vegetables and fresh food. And by contrast, on almost every busy intersection, there's a fast food place. That's the food choices you have in South LA. And just lot after lot, empty lot, buildings that no longer exist are now empty lots, surrounded by chain link fencing. Nobody has access to them. And there's scarcely park space in many of these places. So I thought, this is where I want gardens to be. I finally did go to the Natural History Museum. My husband, who's a curator there, said, why don't you ask the Natural History Museum program, person? And I thought, oh, that's brilliant. I mean, I'm right there already. And they had an area outside the Butterfly Pavilion. I made a proposal, and they went for it because they were just in the initial stages of planning their new remodeling, renovation of the grounds outside, converting 2 enormous parking lots into gardens. And I hope all of you go and visit these wonderful gardens. So I started the edible gardens there at the Natural History Museum, and as I started to get students, again, I realized, I need to reach into the community. I was getting students from Orange County, from Altadena, from all over the place, but I wasn't getting students from right around the museum, and that's the community I wanted to impact. So at the end of the second class of that year, I asked 2 people, and I'm sure the name of Ron Finley is familiar to many of you. Ron took my classes, and then my wonderful, at the time, TA, Vanessa Vobis, who is now a program manager at the museum. I asked them both to help me. I said, I need your help to start a group, and I have a model for what I want to do. And the model is based on my first Master Gardener project. I told Yvonne, I want to teach where people live, not You know, the schools all were covered with asphalt. I went to many, many churches. They also preferred a parking lot to dirt where you could actually garden. So I said, this is what I want to do. I want to find residents who want to grow food. We need to get the word out that people can eat in a much more healthy way, that they can live a healthier lifestyle, eat more fiber, and also get truly wonderful food. You know, organic food is for affluent neighborhoods. And that's wrong. It should be available to anybody and everybody. I'm a native of Los Angeles. I know very well our agricultural history here. I know that you can grow 12 months a year and you can feed yourself with what you grow in your own yard. So that's what I wanted to show people, that they could do that. And because I wanted this word to spread that you can grow your own food, feed your family, really tasty, delicious, organic food, I wanted them to grow it in the front yard. Because the other motivation I had was if you grow food in your front yard, you invariably will get to know your neighbors. Everybody that we started a garden for, when I said, this is another requirement, I said, you need to invite a neighbor or two to participate in this garden building activity. And all of them said, I don't know my neighbors. You don't know your next door neighbor? No. You know, a lot of neighbors have changed over, people have, died, or they've moved out, and a lot of people just didn't know a single neighbor. That was just incomprehensible to me. But anyway, so that was a requirement. If you are gardening in the front, unlike if you're raising roses or mowing your lawn, people actually stop and say, is that an eggplant? What are you doing? One of my students, wonderful, wonderful woman, her mother had a daycare center in Compton, and she emailed me after the class, and she said, I planted the parkway with vegetables. And I said, good for you, Rhonda. And I said, will you please tell me what the progress is, what happens? And I spoke with her as it was going on. I said, what is the reaction of people? And she said, at first people would just walk by. And then they started, asking questions. Well, are you allowed to do that? Is that okay? And even the high school students, you know how high school students are very rambunctious and sometimes they don't always respect a piece of, plant material. The high school students started commenting on the garden. They started noticing it. They started noticing changes in it. They pointed out to each other as they walked by. They completely respected the garden. And one day, she said, a lady came by and she said, is that an okra? That looks like an okra. And she said, yes, it is. And she said, well, aren't you afraid somebody's going to steal it? And Rhonda said, well, I guess if they steal it, I guess they need it. And that is one of the things that we also require of people who apply for our help is you must be willing to share it. So you need to have it in the front lawn. You have to be willing to share it. You have to invite your neighbors. And you have to take a composting class, and you have to get a compost bin.
Florence, let's have you come back to the personal connection health-wise a little bit later as we get into sort of our spiritual attachment to what we're doing.
All right. So we'll pass the mic back.
We're going to hear from Eric. Eric, a couple of things I want you to talk about are your home. It's complete. You're not off the grid, but you're getting there, right? And that's number one. Number two, you're very much a community guy. I mean, you've got your own homestead, but you've got the whole LA bread bakers thing going on. So let's hear a little bit about, it's very obvious, community, 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 community. I mean, it's all about that. It's very personal, but it really brings people together emotionally and in so many different ways. Please.
So let me first acknowledge my collaborator and lovely wife, Kelly Coyne. who we like to say we both argued our two books into existence together. And she's at home tonight tending, we have a herd of cats, which have to be milked every day, by the way, to make the cat cheese. Right? Because I am a master food preserver, and that's one of the things we teach is cat cheese. That doesn't sound appetizing?
Not USDA approved.
No? I guess that isn't USDA approved. Anyways, we live in Silver Lake, specifically in the Happy Foot, Sad Foot district. If any of you are familiar with it, there's a podiatrist sign. There's a happy foot on one side and an unhappy foot on the other. And it turns, it's sort of the, we want to get into spiritual matters, it's sort of the, the fortune-telling device in the neighborhood. It's either a happy foot day or a sad foot day. But because we garden, it's mostly happy foot day in our lives, because gardening for so many reasons is uplifting. Today I made some bread. It was a sad foot day with the bread because it was 100 degrees outside. And
You're supposed to stomp grapes, not bread.
yeah, it's not the activity to do on an extremely hot day today. But so we have the cat herd, we have the garden, we have the mini orchard in front. We live in a 1920s bungalow on a small, typical lot there. With the only odd thing is it's up on a little hill, so we have this little mini orchard in the front. We have a blog called rootsimple.com. Lately, we've been profiling the barrel cactus thieves in the neighborhood, which is an odd phenomenon. Anyway, by the way, but that's a whole other panel discussion. And I co-founded the Los Angeles Bread Bakers with outlaw baker Mark Stambler, who got in trouble for selling bread and baking it in his home, and went on to change the law and make cottage food possible. He's a big part of why that happened. The LA Bread Bakers was a real surprise for me. Teresa Seitz, Mark Stambler, and I founded it at Mark's kitchen table one day when Teresa and I had stalked Mark to learn his bread techniques, and we were sitting there and we said we should start a bread club, and we thought 30 people will sign up for it. 800 people signed up for it, and sooner than we thought we were doing classes and bulk flour orders, and now we're even looking at maybe a co-op bakery coming up so people can do cottage food businesses together. And one of the things that, the reasons it's so popular is because we need better bread in Los Angeles, honestly. We don't have, Northern California has the better bread, and we need to show those smug people how we can do it better down here in LA. So that's one reason we have the LA Bread Bakers, but the other reason is less tangible. Maybe we can get into the more woo-woo aspects of the evening here, which is to say, I love what the Greek philosopher Epictetus said. He says there's some things in our control, and there's some things that are not in our control. And, it seems like my Facebook feed is flooded with all the things that are not in my control, right? All these issues that are suddenly happening that, oh my God, this issue is happening. However, there are some things within our control, and we have some very excellent examples of that on this panel. I'm humbled by the people I'm with today. I mean, what these folks are doing, because these are the things that we do have control over to a great extent, are the food within our own homes and within our own communities, and that's something that we can really make a difference in, and I'm honored just to be a small part of that. Kelly and I are writers, so that's our kind of primary focus, is blogging on rootsimple.com about these things and writing books, how-to books, and so that's a wonderful aspect of it. The other thing I love is this word alchemy that this gentleman uses, right? Because what is alchemy? What were we taught in school about alchemy? That it was crazy people trying to make lead into gold, but actually it's a symbolic language of transformation. And so all of these activities, be it gardening, especially bread baking, is hugely symbolic, because you're taking these sort of dead things and making them come to life again. And that's a symbolic action. You know, when our first book, The Urban Homestead, came out, someone ran into me in Trader Joe's, and they're like, "What are you doing in Trader Joe's? Don't you grow everything?" No? I mean, I do make cat cheese, so we've got that taken care of. But no, I don't make everything, and that's not the point of what Kelly and I try to do. We're not saying you need to live off of grid and, you know, make your own cat cheese or whatever. These things are certainly important, you know, that we eat things from scratch, because God knows, who here likes the industrial food system? Right? I don't see any hands up, so obviously we need to work on that. But it's also symbolic too, because these are things that enrich our lives and enrich our communities. And that, you know, we're not going to be able to grow all our own food, especially in Los Angeles, but we can have these important symbolic actions within our own homes that transform us and then transform our communities, and suddenly everything's a lot better.
Florence and Ron started the ball rolling on the what is
Parkway.
it? The Parkway Act. It isn't an act yet, but use your mic if you're going to speak. But and then of course you guys have had the impact on the AB 1616, which is it's community on steroids. It's an individual thing that starts in one place, and then it's the right thing, it catches on, and then you have some people like one is Shelley Marks, who is not with us tonight, but is a master food preserver and got very active on the whole AB 1616. But what the Parkway, tell us.
Well, we actually, Ron wanted to plant, you know, he said, I want to grow, but I don't have any space. He'd bought a closed-down swim school, so he had a huge Olympic-sized pool, cement, in his backyard, and that's what occupied the entire backyard. And there was cement all the way around, because, you know, pools have that. And I said, Ron, you have this parkway. I measured it. It was 10 feet wide and 150 feet long, because he had a corner commercial property.
Does everybody know what a parkway is? It's that strip of land between the sidewalk and the street.
Yeah, and people think that the city owns it. Actually, you own it. But this is from the mouth of the city attorney. But the city, however, has an interest in street safety, in public safety, and that's where they can come in. And they, of course, over the years, planted lots of street trees on those parkways that are pushing up your sidewalks. But so they have an interest in the parkway as far as safety is concerned. But we planted Ron's Parkway, it got cited, and I said, we need to do something about this, and we tried to talk to Weston's office at the time, but I got Steve Lopez, wonderful Steve Lopez, involved, so that was great. And then we kept on doing Parkway plantings, and we got another garden cited, and I called Steve right away. I said, guess what? We got another one cited, and there was one in Eagle Rock or someplace else at this very same week. For some reason, Bureau of Street Forestry. Did you know there's a department called the Bureau of Street Forestry? Was very vigilant about standard plantings. So with the publicity, and meanwhile, though, I was working with the LA Food Policy Council and meeting with Weston's office or his deputy, and we were going back and forth with the Bureau of Public Works people, and I was suggesting that there are wonderful things that could be planted that would not be a street safety issue. And I think just the publicity on the matter, so that City Council one day in October last year unanimously approved the recommendation of the Bureau of Public Works that people in Los Angeles can plant whatever they want. So instead of, I thought I would, I gave them a plant list, but they decided just to say, oh, you can plant whatever you want. And we're working on the fruit tree list now, but it's a very generous list. I think basically you can plant whatever you want. So
One woman, one man, one swimming pool. Paul, let me bring you into this. We've just heard Eric talk about the word alchemy. Alchemy. Primal alchemy, how'd you come up with that?
I would say that I was in culinary school, and I read a book on food and cooking by Harold McGee, and he had mentioned in there that cooking is the primal alchemy, because the first science was cooking food. I mean, caveman days or however far you want to go back. I mean, that's really the first science that man did. And I said, well, if I have a restaurant someday, I'll name my restaurant Primal Alchemy. Well, I never had a restaurant because I have a 13-year-old daughter that knows who I am. So so I have a catering company. So, if she has something that we're doing together as a family that day, then I'm booked on a catering gig, and it's I can spend time with the family. It's a lot more flexible than being tied to a restaurant.
You, while you were talking about charcuterie and the MFP, Master Food Preserver Program, did you not do charcuterie before the Master Food Preserver Program?
No, I did. I did. Yeah, I did. And so then actually during the first class, I actually got up and got to, I think I did part of a demo the first time. And and we actually went down and, just as simple as it could be, went to Albertsons, Ralph's, whatever, got a shoulder, boned out shoulder, and I think I showed them how to isolate out a copa really quick and salt and put it in a bag, and there you go, weigh it, and this is how many days you cure it, and then when it's done, rinse it off and put whatever flavor coating you want on it, black pepper or fennel or chili powder, and then, hang it up and dry it. And then just, then we talked about, how do you cure that and what temperature it needs to be at and what humidity it needs to be at, more importantly. And we've sampled all kinds of stuff during the course of that class and brought lots of snacks for people to try. So
there'll be some afterwards. You get to try it as well. Do you grow for your business? Do you grow? Are you allowed to grow for your business?
Well, it's a little bit of a shaky ground. You probably don't want to advertise it 100%. I would say that there's several different community garden systems in the city of Long Beach. The ones that I was involved with was more of a city community garden, but it was very strict rules, and you could not produce anything that was for a business because they had people that had abused that in the past. And any rule that that they found that was broken, or anything that was abused, they made a rule for it. So they really were very, very imposing as far as every single thing that the board didn't approve of. They made a rule for it, and so slowly push people out. So they ended up pushing me out on a technicality, but that's okay because I'm in the Long Beach Organic group, which has multiple food growing areas throughout the city of Long Beach, and very supportive and great community, and everybody exchanges information, but nobody really asks you about it. But I'm not producing massive amounts of food for my catering. I will use some of the tomatoes because we have so many of them that I'll freeze them, and we'll use them for soups as like a little hors d'oeuvre, but the quantity wise is very, very small. Beets or carrots or something like that. But generally I will go to the farmer's market or to my local farmers and buy the majority of the things that I need from them, especially for a big party. Party of 100. I don't have enough food in my little garden for 100 so people. So.
Sometimes I don't have enough to make a salad with. The urban farms that you're working with, are those commercial enterprises, or are they, again, local?
The largest one is probably Farm Lot 59, where Sasha Kano worked with the Office of Sustainability, found that there was these plots of land in the city. This one had been designated Lot 59, and it was near an oil producing area, but it wasn't contaminated as that much. She was able to scrape off a lot of the soil and put brand new soil in. So she amended her soil, but she's charging, $10 a dozen for eggs at the market. And you think that that's outrageous. That is probably the most expensive person that I've seen do that, because you can get them for $4 a dozen, you can get them for $5 a dozen. But her chickens lead a glorious life and are fed amazing food and live in a great location, and it's very, very close to where everybody's living, that's buying them. So I think the local community there is really supportive of buying a product like that and is willing to pay a little more money for it. And I think I profess in any of the proteins that you're buying that we have the idea in our head that I have to have a 16-ounce steak, or I have to have this many, I have to have this much of protein, and you don't need that. Even as a chef, I was always thinking, dinner time I'm going to serve 8 ounces of fish, and lunchtime I'm going to serve 6 ounces of fish, and I do half of that now. So I do such small portions, so I'm willing to pay twice as much for the protein that I'm buying, because I want to buy better quality, local, seasonal, sustainable, organic, or whatever to support that. So the money out of my pocket is going to support how it's being raised, but I'm eating half as much, which is a much healthier ideal anyway, because we don't need to be that protein heavy. We need to be a lot more fruit and vegetable heavy, probably, especially on the fruit end. Especially on the vegetable end, with kales and all the lettuces and stuff that we should be eating maybe a little bit more of, and protein is just more of a like 3.5 ounces, 3 ounces in a meal is fine.
Is Long Beach Organic a nonprofit organization?
Yes.
Is it? Oh, it is.
Yeah.
And what does it what does it do?
Long Beach Organic was started by Charlie Moore, which now has Agalita Foundation, which does the research on ocean pollution and plastics and things like that. And he's doing great things for that. But other people since took it over from him, and it did dwindle for a while because it fell under a management that didn't go very well. But the gardeners themselves, at least in my garden, took it back over on ourselves, and we kind of took Long Beach Organic over and then redeveloped it, and then now it has grown, by leaps and bounds in the last 5-6 years, because we took it over and decided that we were going to manage it ourselves instead of it being managed from, a group that was, as a little bit disorganized.
But are you setting up gardens? Are you setting up community gardens?
We look for
a co-op or what?
Well, the head of it looks for new gardens. These are all people that are in the local community that don't have, I don't have, Dana and I and my wife, we have a 0 lot line house, so we have no place to grow. I think when we first moved in there, we were trying to grow things on the roof and little pots and a watering system, but it was crazy. And we grew stuff in our parking too, and we have a high school right next to us, and the kids were saying, "Oh, that's a tomato, I think," and full of cherry tomatoes, but we never had to worry about them stealing it, because they couldn't figure out how to grow it or how to eat it, because it didn't come in a package and it wasn't at McDonald's. But no, if anybody that's a resident of the city of Long Beach, and you have to prove that, I think you have to prove residency by having electrical bill or something like that, with your name in it and an address, and then you say okay, and I think it's about $80 for a 10 by 10 lot for 6 months, or maybe less than that. So they vary, but as you grow into a better gardener, and as you grow more respected within the garden, then you're able to get a 20 by 20 lot or a 10 by 20 lot, or you get more acreage if you show that you're active, I guess.
And these are in community lots, as city-owned lots or privately owned lots?
Yeah, we basically rent them for I think, a penny a year or something like that, and then we have to pay, the water, or we have to pay, or sometimes they're county, Los Angeles County, and we have to pay the, I don't know, whatever the taxes are maybe on the lot, and that's it. So we take all the money, we pool it together, we have all our own tools, we build our own tool sheds, we get community projects where we bring in college students that are looking for credits for community support, and we've brought a lot of fraternities and sororities actually in to help work in the garden and get them to be involved on that level too, which is great.
Much nicer than hazing.
Yeah, but it's been very good, and so we have all kinds of construction jobs that just progress over the course of time to make each garden better, and we're always adding new gardens and new areas of Long Beach, so the people in that community will have a place to garden.
Is there a yard sharing program? I mean, if you've got somebody who wants to garden, but somebody's got a backyard, they don't. Do you do that in Long Beach?
That's been a lot more difficult to try to find, because I know people that have, beautiful lots of land in their backyards, but sometimes they're very hesitant to let anybody else garden them. And even either they're elderly and they're scared, or they have no interest because they think it's a liability issue, somebody in their garden or somebody in their yard that, if they hurt themselves, then they would be liable for it. So I think it's a lot more difficult to do that. It's a lot easier for us to say, hey, you got lots of kumquats and you got avocados, and can we come pick them, share them with not the neighbors, but we say, can we donate them to the homeless? And they think, well, at least they're not dropping on the ground. We're sharing them. And then if I find somebody that's interested, like I've been picking one fig tree for maybe 6 years now, and I keep on trading them. I give them a couple of jars of fig jam, and I get flats and flats of figs off their tree, and I keep them from falling on their sidewalk, because it's a really big mess on their sidewalk every time the figs fall down. So
it's funny you wanted to jump in, because I have a question for you. Please.
I just wanted to jump in and let people know one of these works. Does this one work? There's an organization that I work with as well, and it's the other one. Naturally. Yeah. There's an organization that I also work with in Los Angeles, and I'm talking about in the greater Los Angeles area. It's not limited to Los Angeles County, because they certainly go further east, west, north, and south, called Food Forward, which was founded by Rick Namias. He and I were on a panel last year, I think, at the Green Festival. And often people find out about my co-op, and they call me, because the deal is, it's like people find out about the co-op and say, I have all these oranges, why don't you come take them? And they also know that they're going to get a bag of preserves or whatever we're making in return for that, as we just roll it over. But when we are offered a lot more than our co-op can use, that's when I call Food Forward. And Food Forward's concept, in case you're not familiar, is that they are a clearinghouse. They will get together groups of volunteers, and they've tapped into the corporate volunteer network, that it can be a great staff building exercise to go out and harvest a small orchard together, or it might just be 2 backyards in Van Nuys, but it used to be an orchard. And then they will process the fruit that goes to food banks in Los Angeles. And so, again, it's never any money changing hands. It's simply coordinating and organizing.
Now, actually, I was going to say,
SoCal
that's
Harvest
what
is.
Exactly.
So, except Food Forward is in L.A., SoCal Harvest is in Long Beach, and then where you go out of the county, we go like over into Orange County a little bit, because there's nobody in Orange County that I know of right now that's doing that. So we do that. So.
Food Forward, I'm on their advisory board, and it's I've been present since the birth of that organization, and it somewhat parallels my own personal experience in getting involved in growing and caring about food and sharing food. But I'll come back to that. Happy to talk to anybody about Food Forward after this. I want to say 2 things. One is, and actually I just want to say the one thing. Some of us will stay after the show, after the discussion. We'll have to move out into the parking lot if you have individual questions for us. But Florence has to take off. She's going on a vacation, and she hasn't had one in decades. So we're going to let her drive out of here as soon as this panel discussion is over, unless she decides she wants some snacks, then you can chat her up there. Now, the question I was going to ask you, Susan, is do you, with the co-op, with the families in the co-op, do you foodscape? Do you do what that beautiful idea that they have with all those backyards in Switzerland?
Well, sometimes when when it's been a bad year for figs and we've all seen a fig tree around, we will actually contact the people and ask them if they want to have some preserves made out of their figs. So we will contact people. But
do you plan ahead? Do you say, hey, this year we're going to grow this because we need this, and she's going to grow that because we want to share, we want to get, no?
Most of us, most of us live in the Hollywood Hills, so we have very limited space to grow anything, which is why the great the great hope of the co-op, which is the pickling co-op, has not yet come to be because none of us can grow cucumbers. We live in the Hollywood Hills. We don't have room. I live on the shady side of the hill, and all I can do is pots on the roof. But in defense of pots, we have one member of our co-op, and they have 2 Bears lime trees in pots on their patio that produce 140 pounds of limes annually. So
Limes, look out.
I know,
Big
I know. So you can do a lot with pots, but no, we don't plan in that way. Also, I'm not a dictatorial administrator of my co-op. If you want to come into the co-op, I'm not going to tell you what you have to do or can't do or when you can come get stuff. Literally, the co-op is a wicker basket outside my front door. And if people aren't in the co-op but they know about the basket and they want some, they can just come get it. I mean, really, my whole point is that, our co-op is about people who share. So that's what we do.
That's so beautiful.
People want to do that. People really, really want to share.
Yeah. And that actually brings in the whole woo-woo component. Thank you for the phrase. Florence, now I'm going to have you speak of your health and your gardening.
Can I
but
talk
if
about
you have
sharing
another
too?
woo-woo example, you're welcome to use it.
Yeah. I think growing food in the front yard really does build community. It's not a trite statement. It really makes people interact right on the street. And even people driving by these gardens will just driving by and they'll stop their car and talk to the person who's gardening. And I think that's what that's what we need in our lives, is that more direct connection with people. And the sharing comes naturally. I mean, when I say we ask our garden recipients to agree to sharing the food, I know that it just happens. It isn't something that we schedule. The other thing I wanted to talk about that Sarah asked me about beforehand, and I said, that's fine, I have no problem with it. I've had 2 bouts of cancer, and the first one was about back in, when was it? In the 90s, early 90s, yeah. And I was working in a high-pressure job at the time, and I sort of toughed it through 3 chemo sessions until finally said, why are you doing this? And I said, well, I don't know, because, I'm afraid to lose my job, one, and secondly, I just always just push through. But I finally did decide on good advice to take a break and take a leave. And gardening really was my salvation, because what I did every day was sit on the ground and dig in the dirt. And this activity is very healing, You're touching dirt, and then you're watching, and you're planting a seed, and you're watching things grow and develop. And it helped again the next time this came around, only I just pushed through and kept teaching classes. But I want to tell you about a book that I read that was very, very influential in part of my thinking. There's a historian who wrote a book called, I think, Gardening or Imprisoned People and Gardens. And it's not what you think. I mean, because there are programs in prisons for teaching people how to garden. But this was a historian talking about societies in the past where people were imprisoned by things like war, for example, that soldiers in World War I and the British soldiers, they planted lettuce in where they were fighting trench warfare. Because that little bit of green just gave you some hope, and that things would be better. And then he talked about other imprisoned people, prisoners of war during war, would start to plant. At first, it was to add to their own personal diets, because the prison diet was so dreadful, and then the prison managers decided, wow, this is a great idea. This is actually producing food for everybody, and got everybody started gardening. we were interned, Japanese Americans and Japanese, 110,000 of us were interned during World War, the beginning of World War II. And what did people do? They started gardens. So gardening is beyond just, providing food. It also nurtures the spirit. And
I have to say, you always move me to tears. I had a moment or two with, I don't know if you want to call it spiritual or if you want to just call it nature doing what nature does. I had bought this bush and I didn't know anything about gardening really, and I put it in the wrong place and it doesn't get enough sun. And the one day that I turned around to take a look at it, it's a lavender star flower it's called, and I just happened to turn my head at the very moment that the only flower it produced popped open. And I thought, oh, I've just been present for this really special moment. And then when we were taking the Master Gardener course, and we were at the Huntington Gardens, the Huntington Library and Gardens, we get to go into the room where the laboratory, and we looked through microscopes, and we were looking. Oh my gosh, the images of plant cells they're beautiful. They're like abstract art. It's so gorgeous, but they sliced a bean, so we could look at this bean under the microscope, and inside the bean is this thing called a cotyledon, which is sort of the first leaves. Do I have that right? I hope. God, Yvonne, forgive me. And this thing popped up while I was looking at it. So I literally saw life being born that moment. Simultaneously, somebody discarded their old ficus tree, which I still have, and it's doing all right. I've got this building where I live. There's a lot of hummingbirds, and 2 different hummingbird mothers built nests in this ficus tree, and both of them had their babies in that tree. I'm gonna cry. Both of them had their babies in that tree, and both times I got to watch the babies take their first flight. And the second time that happened, there was a group of kids living next door to me. And the kids gathered around the base of the stairs. And I was thinking, this is so much better than a video game. And they were watching this bird go, boom, off into oh man, it was beautiful. That's my woo-woo. Eric, what's yours?
My woo-woo moment. Anyone know Kirk Anderson, the beekeeper? Yeah, founded the Backwards Beekeepers and now active in Honey Love. He taught Kelly and I what little we know about beekeeping, and we adopted our first beehive from Kirk, and it had been living in a shop vacuum in the San Fernando Valley. If you think about it, a shop vacuum is a perfect beehive, right? It's got a hole in one side, and the bees were coming in and out of the shop vacuum. And the owner of the shop vacuum freaked out and threw the thing in a bush, and it sat there for a year, the hive. And then Kirk brought it over. He wrapped a screen around it, put it in his truck, and brought it to our backyard. And Kirk is an amazing human being, and also very good with his hands. And when it came time to move the hive into the hive boxes, he set the shop vac up and deftly pulled out a razor blade and sliced the bottom of the shop vac open. And then we peered. I'm going to choke up. Damn.
I love it. That's why we do this.
We just peered. It was like the veil had lifted and the mystery of life was
Seriously.
there.
I know. It's true. It's universal. Paul, give us a woo-woo while Eric breaks down. And this will be the last woo-woo and the last teary thing, because we're going to open it up to you guys to ask questions. We're going to be done here in about 12 minutes or so.
I would probably have to say For the last 15 years, I've been teaching Days of Taste program, which is by the American Institute of Wine and Food. We teach 4th or 5th grade kids the elements of taste, and bring them through the palette of what's sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and things like that. And we've developed it locally in the school that I do it for. This year we did it for 105 kids, 4th graders. And one of the days we go through all the taste exercises and teach them about how to read labels and how to help change the diet of their selves and their families. And then we take them over to the garden, the Long Beach Organic Garden, that's close to us. And so they can literally walk there. But I think my woo-woo moment is knowing what I do with those kids. And then when they came to the garden for the first time, and I had a lot of carrots 2 years ago, and they all came and they surrounded the place, and I told them how we grow and how my wife's mother, Nancy, helps me, and she plants and she waters, and I go back and forth, and I do some of the heavy lifting, and then she, keeps them from dying. But carrots are so forgiving, and they stay on the ground forever, so I said, well, I got enough carrots so every kid can have one. And I think my woo-woo moment was the fact that the kids were able to pick a carrot themselves, and there was every color represented. We had purple, white, yellow, and red carrots. So they didn't never know what they were going to get, and they came up, well, I got a red one, or I got this one, and then they took them over the water, they rinsed them off, and then they just ate them. Because that concept of being able to grow something, wash it off, and eat it immediately is amazing. And then we knowing that I've changed all their lives now, because now they'll come up to me, and it's a college graduate, and they're saying, you taught me back this many years ago, and I've changed my diet because of that. And that's you've helped transform somebody's life into a better thing because of what you taught them way back then. So that's nice.
See, it's very personal, but it connects to community. So your turn. Who has questions? Corinne.
I just wanted to add one thing, and maybe you'll appreciate this, is that I'm working on a film and a movement right now called Ground Operations about going, what the film doesn't talk about next. I'm going to start.
No, I know.
One are vets coming back from the war and starting organic farms. Yeah. When we are showing this film across the country on farms where vets who are working guys that are in wheelchairs, picking blueberries, we're showing the film, and vets are coming up and speaking after, and it's so healing and so beautiful, and there is never a dry eye in the house. I'm going on tour with her to like 6 farms over the summer to do this, and it just really reminded me of what you were saying.
I'm glad that you mentioned it, because it had occurred to me and I forgot to. But it's the connection is soil to soul. Soil will heal your soul, and think about it. What you put in the soil is going to go into your body. It will make you care more about what you put into the soil. It'll make you care more about what's in that soil. It'll make you care more about the animals that might eat that plant or that bug or whatever. It just makes you think more deeply of the whole process. And I know from that movie, from the very first, Ground Operations is a really powerful film. Soil heals the soul. It really does. I'm sure. Yeah, that's a great idea, Nancy. Who else has questions? Dana.
I have a comment, which Paul didn't mention, and that is that intention and energy that goes into food from the ground up also carries over into how it's prepared and the attitude of the people in our kitchen. And we have very happy staff that all understand that the energy that they give off gets incorporated into the food through the cooking process and the preserving process and all that too. So I just wanted to know that.
It's that thing of don't eat food from grumpy people, because their grumpiness goes into the food, and you don't want to ingest that. So if you see the chef and then the cook back and behind the kitchen and he's not a happy guy, it's maybe you don't want to order the stuff he's making. So.
Jim Farber is going to ask a question. Here's a little plug for him. He's got a wonderful new show coming up at the Autry Museum about Route 66. When does it open? June. What? Oh, 6/6. I get it.
The grand opening, the public opening is June 8th.
So that's all.
What I wanted to ask you, though, was about drought conditions. and water at the moment.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I love my garden in the back, and I actually feel guilty, going out and thinking, I've got to, that orange tree really needs to be, get a good drip watering.
Yeah, I'm an experienced gardener, and I lost 2 fruit trees this year from just taking it for granted. For years, I've got 40-year-old fruit trees, and winter rains have always done it for them. And this year, I completely disconnected the 5-inch rainfall that we had to what was going on with the fruit trees. And so I'm shocked. But as far as vegetable gardens, removing turf is the best thing everybody can do to save water. And growing food instead of the turf is still a better investment, I think, for people in health and probably in terms of money, too, because you can mulch your vegetable beds and you can put straw over around the plants, and you still will use less water than turf lawn that has to be watered 2 or 3 times. Yes. If you still can save them, then deep water them. Start, 1 week and then wait another week and do it. You've got to replenish the water they're used to getting in the winter.
It's so heartbreaking. Eric.
2 things about that. One is we need to remember that municipal water is a tiny fraction of water use in the state compared to the agricultural system in the Central Valley. I mean, it's a very small part of it. Not to excuse profligate water use amongst us. The other thing I want to note is that gray water, specifically laundry to landscape systems, are legal under the California Plumbing Code now. You do not have to have a permit, and it's very easy to set up a laundry to fruit tree system, which we did on our own house, providing you use the correct detergent. You have to use detergent that does not have salts in it. Ecos and Oasis Biocompatible are the 2 detergents for that. Very, very easy to do.
The gray water gorilla, is that what gray water gorillas can?
I think. Yes, that's right.
Is that what it's
they
called?
changed their name, but yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Other questions from the audience? Further questions? If not, I'm going to make a couple of announcements. Last chance. Final words here from anybody? Inspirational words? Website addresses? Facebook pages?
It's Nichols Canyon Co-op. And it's Nichols Canyon Co-op.
NICHOLS.
And we're on Facebook. You can even type in Nicholas Canyon Co-op. You'll still get to us. And we're Nichols Canyon Co-op at Gmail. Facebook, you'll find us. And anyone can do it. It's the easiest thing you've ever done. Absolutely easy.
Florence.
And kids need to see you doing it.
Sorry.
And our group is called lagreengrounds.org. So please check out our website, and you're welcome to come anytime to our wonderful dig-ins. If you want to have a real feeling of a community experience, it's really like old-fashioned barn raising, So people love it. They love digging, and they're doing it for a total stranger, and they love planting vegetables. Wonderful.
They're not strangers at the end of the day.
Rootsimple.com, ROOT simple.com, and yes, I tweet.
Primalalchemy.com. No, I don't tweet, but we do a lot of Facebook. And so Chef Paul Buchanan or Primal Alchemy Catering and Events. And if you're interested in Days of Taste, just in Google put Days of Taste and you'll see all about the program for the kids.
We are all on Facebook, and we're all Facebook friends. I have actual real friends in real life with these guys through my associations with the Master Gardeners and the Master Food Preservers. Susan and I are actually Facebook friends, and now we're real friends, so it's nice to meet you. Before we close, Paul has provided charcuterie tonight. Susan has provided, tell me what you provided. Do it on the mic.
I provide...
Try them both.
Light bulb. I have 4 jars of our preserves. There's 1 jar of kumquat with red chili and organic cocoa nibs. There's a jar of grapefruit orange with rose water.
Ooh.
There's a jar of passion fruit tangerine preserves. Try that one.
Yeah.
Try that
Yeah.
one. And then there's also a jar of, did I say orange grapefruit chili, rose water, cocoa nibs, and passion fruit. Yeah, those are the 4.
And Paul, what'd you bring? Oh, wait, Eric, talk about the bread. Sorry.
As I said, it was a sad foot day in the bread world. But what I brought today was I'm a big believer in whole wheat sourdough fermented bread. So both of them are whole wheat, 100% sourdough fermented. One is a rye bread, and the other is a bread made with red fife wheat from a wonderful new business called Grist and Toll in Pasadena, the first mill to open in Los Angeles in 100 years, and it's reasonably local wheat that I milled at home and then over fermented in a friend's kitchen today. So it's a little, it went up and then it went down, and it tastes good, but it's a little on the narrow side, perfect for jam.
Dana Morgan is here, and she's also another wonderful bread baker.
And a far better baker than me, so go talk to Dana there.
I saw a raised hand. Did you have a question?
I'm curious about, you just mentioned that you're buying local wheat. Are you only buying local wheat, or where you know the source is because of all the wheat?
Well, I actually grew the world's smallest wheat field last year, too, which was 2 by 2 feet, and then harvested enough to make a fraction of a muffin. No, this is, the supermarket's an ethical minefield, and I have to bring my copy of Epictetus with me. There are things under my control, things not under my control. And when we have a new business like Grist and Toll that I can support, that's wonderful. I can go get wheat there. I have my own mill at home, and I grind it, although you can get flour at Grist and Toll, of course. So that's under my control. But, when I teach bread making, I want people just to go out and buy crappy supermarket flour and make bread. That's important to me. It doesn't have to be, locally sourced. But that being said, you can now get it, and whole wheat is much better for us as well. So we can talk more about that later.
Do you want to say one more thing, or are you done?
I just want to say one thing is I think the pressure to be 100% organic or 100% sustainable or 100% anything is just a far-off notion. I think if everybody can make a small effort to do one thing or two things, or buy a little more from the farmer's market, or and turn away that plastic bag that they're trying to offer you to put your other plastic bags and plastic products in, I think it just make small steps. I mean, I think forcing people to be 100% is really overwhelming. Nobody's going to be perfect. I don't want perfect people in the society. I don't want everybody to be the same. I think if everybody just says, I'm going to educate myself and make a little bit of effort and try something new, then that's good enough. Grow something new in your garden.
And I finally understood the phrase, don't let the perfect become the enemy of the good. So I love that. So Sustainable Works is doing a film screening, Trashed, Tuesday, May 6th. Trashed is Jeremy Irons sitting next to a mountain of garbage, and there will be a panel discussion afterward with Val Zavala and a few other folks from Santa Monica people. Enough of that.
And my friend Charlie Moore is actually in that as well.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. He's in the film.
He's in the film, yeah. They interview him about the trash and about how the plastic pollution is going into the ocean and is in the stomach of most every fish that's out there. So.
Where's it going to be?
It's going to be screened at the Arrow in Santa Monica on Montana. And tickets are available. You go to sustainableworks.org/trashed. And get this, the Skirball Museum is working with Fallen Fruit. They're giving away 150 pomegranate trees this Sunday. So you should RSVP if you plan to go, because again, only 100.
Doesn't need a lot of water.
Yeah, right, exactly.
No.
Well, but if we start them right, info@fallenfruit.org. That's where you make your reservation. And as I mentioned, the University of California Cooperative Extension is celebrating. It has a centennial celebration, a science and service fair, May 8th. 3 to 6 p.m., Dominguez Rancho Adobe Museum, which is in Rancho Dominguez. Says South LA, but I don't recognize that as South LA. Is it?
It is.
Okay.
In Compton.
Is it? Okay. Oh, cool. So it's free. It's 3 to 6 p.m. Plus, if you go to the website, which is CE Los Angeles, it's the world's longest it's so ridiculous. CE as in Cooperative Extension, Los Angeles .UC ANR.
Google Master Gardeners.
Okay, that's a great idea. Just Google LA County Master Gardeners, and then it'll send you to some website or other, and you get to go to this event. The event itself, you can become a citizen scientist for a day. You don't necessarily have to be at this celebration to do that, right? You get to count pollinators, check water, blah, blah. Go to the website, LA County Master Gardeners. Nancy, did you want to ask a question?
I had a question for Florence because I had an argument with the master arborist in Santa Monica because my tree had died.
Walt?
And I wanted to put a fruit tree in, and he said that would come out. And I said I don't want the trees that are there because it's just trees that they had decided was the tree for a street.
Yeah.
And they said, okay, well, we won't put a tree in at all. And then the next thing I know, they planted a tree.
Right. Are you in the city of Santa Monica, though? Yeah. So you're going to have to go. You're going to have to go with what the city of Santa Monica park guidelines.
You know, what if I take it out? And they said, oh, you should.
No, I would. Middle of the night, change it out for another tree that they won't know, they won't recognize. And then it's a fruit tree.
And then you can count. You can count on them not coming by on a routine, routine anything, including routine watering of the trees that the city has planted. No.
I didn't let Paul tell you what he's serving. I'm sorry. I should have. Go. Talk.
Salty pig parts.
And I just brought a bunch of different jams, so let's go jam.
Okay.
Thanks to everybody on the panel.